Hi, everybody. My name is Rafa Lombardino, and this is Translation Confessional. Teaching translation amid the pandemic. Today, we're doing something a little different. I decided to interview a few friends who are also translation instructors to learn what their experience has been like while teaching translation during the COVID-19 pandemic. I have been teaching at the University of California, San Diego Extension since 2010. Back then, we were transitioning into an online-only program. When I went there to earn my professional certificate in Spanish to English translation, I had a couple of hybrid classes before I finished the program, which means we'd still meet on campus, but we could save on paper and printer cartridges by downloading and submitting our homework online. Then, when I became an instructor at UCSD Extension, my first class was designed to be taught completely online. I started out teaching tools and technology in translation, then we added Introduction to Swordfish, which focuses on the cross-platform CAT tool I've been using for the past 12 years, and more recently I started teaching Introduction to Subtitling. Considering that, nothing changed for my students and me during the COVID-19 pandemic, because we didn't have to transition to an online environment. Well, we did switch platforms from Blackboard to Canvas, but we were already used to having students work independently throughout the week by watching pre-recorded lessons and submitting their homework online to get personalized feedback, besides interacting as a group in our discussion board. So, knowing that my friends are also teaching translation classes, I decided to reach out and ask how their students are doing and check if they had to make changes and adapt during the spring quarter while the majority of the United States is practicing social distancing. They will introduce themselves, tell how long they've been teaching, what classes and where they teach, and whether they taught in person or online before COVID-19. I also asked them if anything changed for them since social isolation went into effect, and how their students have adapted to the new normal we're living in. Additionally, I was interested in knowing what resources their universities have offered in terms of platform and tools, and whether their classes are live or pre-recorded. Lastly, I asked them what the main challenges have been for them or their students given the circumstances, and if there are any suggestions or recommendations they would like to share with translation teachers and students worldwide. Let's listen to their statements and learn from their experiences.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Chris Silva. I am originally from Brazil and I currently live in Alexandria, Virginia. I have been teaching online, translation that is, since 2009. I started teaching at NYU, which stands for New York University. Then also taught at DU, the University of Denver, University College, and I currently teach at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey. I currently teach Portuguese translation, and my classes have always been online before COVID-19. At MIS, we used to have a little bit of a hybrid component in which we did have some face-to-face classes, and so that is no longer the case. I guess I'm a little bit of an oddball out, so I didn't really have to change anything since social isolation went into effect because the vast majority of the classes has been online for a really long time. Students in my class had already been taught Portuguese translation online, but I think what they had to adapt to was to have everything online. And that's a little bit of a challenge, not only because of the contact hours that you're looking at a computer screen, but also all the other interactions that they have gone totally online. So deliberate practice sessions, group projects, that's all online now. And I think that it has required a lot of adaptation from students. My university, academic institution, MIS, has been extremely generous in offering platforms and tools, so that we as an institute, could continue our online teaching. But also, the institution has been extremely gracious onboarding faculty who might have not had the same experience as I have, giving a lot of support for teachers who have to make the transition, giving a lot of sessions. So a lot of like sandbox sessions in which instructors could try out the new technologies and see how they could adapt. Also a lot of like swapping of ideas and techniques. And I'm extremely grateful for that because I ended up learning some new tricks in this process as well. Our classes are live. They can be recorded in case there is a student who's going to miss a session, but they're not pre-recorded. So at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, the classes are taught synchronously. I think that the main challenge that we all have is on a human level. There's a lot of doom and gloom in the media, and there's this little dark cloud hanging over everybody's heads. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. The economy is suffering, people are suffering. I think that that has a tremendous impact on people's openness to learning, availability to learn. Stress levels have gone through the roof. And so I think it's important not to minimize that and to acknowledge that as learning challenges, even if students handle technology very well. I think that the emotional factors are very important.
My name is Jonas Nicoltre, and I was born in São Paulo, Brazil, but I have been living in the US since I was 18. Currently, I live in Seattle. I moved here in 1992 from California. I've been teaching for over 30 years, on and off. I teach some language classes at the City University of Seattle. I also teach Translation 101, which is Introduction to Interpretation and Translation, Trans 106, Ethics of Translation and Interpretation, and currently I start teaching Trans 104, Technology for Translators and Interpreters at the Bellevue College, where we have a 2-year certificate program. Some of the classes were in person and some online. The language classes at City University were in person, but my translation classes at the Bellevue College were online. We started the online translation program in the fall of 2018. For the language classes, I had to adapt the whole curriculum to fit online teaching. As you might know, the systematic design of instruction and the methodology of online teaching is a little different from in person. I believe there are many more parts to the puzzle when it comes to teaching online. You must deal with a lot more technology, not just in a sense of delivery and retrieval of the content, but also how to maintain the students engaged, how to assess their performance, collaboration, motivation, and so forth. For my Trans 104, I had to change from a hybrid asynchronous and synchronous class to full synchronous class. Luckily for me, transitioning to online teaching was not so much of a shock, since it was part of my training when I got my master's in education in 2002. The focus there was on adult education, curriculum development, and instructional technology. And I was lucky enough to do a practicum teaching other teachers on how to transition from classroom to online teaching. Of course, back then it was quite different from today since internet teaching was in its early stages. Nowadays, everything is much more advanced and continues to change at a light speed. It is quite overwhelming to keep up with technology and all the tools we have at our disposal. For my students, it was and continues to be a challenge due to the generation gap. I have older students who are struggling with the technology. Does it put more stress, anxiety on them? Which in turn impedes their learning and progress. We're using Canvas and Zoom to deliver our classes. The university and the college have provided us with training and help with technology. They are available to us when we need them. And they have created cheat sheets for us and the students on how to use the tools and platforms, which is great. They also created a tutorial for the students on how to create and upload video files, Word files, or all sort of things that we need to be uploaded to Canvas so they can turn in their assignments. Our classes are live. I think that for my students, the main challenge, again, is technology. As I've mentioned, there's a bit of a generation gap in my class. The older students are struggling with the technology, not just in the way they are being used, but as well as to send information back to us. Whereas the young students, who are more familiar with technology in general, have fewer issues. Another challenge that I see is the issue with connection to the internet. Some of my students are in remote areas where internet connection is poor. Therefore, most of the time, they have to participate using audio only, which makes it harder to follow the class since they cannot see the visual materials used, such as slides and videos, as well as seeing the other students. So therefore, they kind of feel isolated, I believe. Suggestions. Try to be very transparent with your students in terms of expectations, making sure that everyone is on the same page. Gather background information, such as level of education, technology skills, internet connections, if they have taken online classes before, if they like to read versus watching videos, so that you can have a general idea of their learning style and try to match the teaching styles with their learning style. Be available to the students via chat, email, phone, videos, etc., so that they don't feel lost. Their success depends on your efforts to help them achieve their goals. Get feedback at the end of each class so that you know if you need to make changes for your next class. Give constant feedback for everything they do and try to help them as much as you can.
Send me an email at rlombardino@wordawareness.com or leave a voice message on my Anchor page. If I get enough feedback and voice messages, I can go back to the subject and post a special podcast episode with everyone's opinion on this very same theme. By the way, my Anchor page is anchor.fm/translation-confessional. I look forward to hearing from you. Stay tuned for weekly episodes and subscribe to Translation Confessional through your favorite podcast app.